Hey, security peeps, we are back with another edition of Breaking LinkedIn with Breaking Into Cybersecurity in Hacker Valley Studio. I am here. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter. We are in episode 11, which is crazy. And I'm here with two phenomenal co-hosts. First, my Chris, the only Chris for today.
Hi, everyone.
How do the people, Chris? And Ron Eddings, who is holding
Hello.
down the fort for Hacker Valley Studio today.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Or afternoon.
Good morning. Actually, it's even morning on the East Coast. Well, I guess depending where folks are, it could be afternoon.
Right.
So we are here, and the topic that came in, we unfortunately, Chris is not with us. Chris Cochran is busy taking over the world. He's not with us today. We already have some good folks coming in. Hello to Sabu and hello to Terrence. But our topic for today is really focused on why job descriptions, especially for entry-level people, are ask for so much experience. And this comes up, I mean, this is like a topic daily. It comes to us very often. Gary, our guest from yesterday, he got a crazy job description that he shared around LinkedIn. I saw that one yesterday. And so that is the number one question. I could answer it myself, but I'm going to share it with you two first. And let me know your thoughts in terms of why you think these job descriptions are asking for so much for these entry-level roles.
I could go first. One of the reasons is typically they're looking to backfill someone. So they're looking to fill someone with the roles, with the skills and competencies of the person leaving. The problem is the person that's leaving has likely been there 2 to 3 years since they joined, so they're no longer at an entry-level position. The second is laziness on the part of either the hiring manager and or those fulfilling the requirements, or they're just going to copy and paste something that's already out on the internet, and that's just perpetuating the cycle of ridiculous requirements and just keeping it going.
I 100% agree, especially with the last part. I've worked with several recruiters that have helped me create recs, and they'll have a template already. And then, if you don't put a lot of time and effort into it, you might end up just modifying something that wasn't good in the first place. You just add on some extra pieces that you thought would also be helpful if you were to find a certain person of that specific background. But yeah, I think that as hiring managers, as recruiters, the collaboration is getting better. I think the requirements are becoming more and more reasonable, but I think there needs to be a tighter bond between the two, and the two need to spend, especially the hiring manager, needs to spend more time on being realistic if they want entry level. Like, what are the real requirements? Maybe it's a degree, maybe it's certifications, maybe it's the fact that they've done a GitHub project. That could be also something pretty advantageous for a hiring manager. So I think that's typically what I see from my side.
You are both correct. I don't have anything else to add. It's a combination of all these different things. On top of that, what's really, really sad is when, a manager is asking for, or they either are not double checking what they kicked over to HR or whatever HR template is out there. Because that's when you really struggle. You'll see job descriptions that have all kinds of random things in them, and a candidate is looking at it like, I don't even know what this means. I don't know what this is. How is this entry level? You're asking for 2 years experience with a CISSP, which Tyrone made a comment about already that I'm about to put up. But it's just absolutely ridiculous when it comes to the combination. The one thing I would add on a recruiter side is that depending on the size of the company, so, Chris is working for Grim, that's a cyber company, and I'm in there. So, and then Ron is working for Palo Alto, which is a huge company, and they have technical recruiters and cybersecurity recruiters. And so very, very, people who understand what it is to have these technical types of roles out there. But if you're in an organization where you're like a recruiter of one, or you're a team of one, and one of your many roles, so you're hiring for marketing, a project manager, some other category, you're hiring things, and oh, by the way, there's this cybersecurity rec. They don't even have any idea that a CISSP should not be on this. They'd have no idea. Like, they're just pulling stuff. And if a manager isn't really focused, that's how you get, I think, some of these recs that are posted that are just complete contradictions of what the person is really looking for. So
I think another huge issue on that same note is once you look at those requirements, you might see specific keywords and whatnot that are on the job description that aren't really a part or required for that specific position. And you get into that gig and you'll be like, hey, I was applying for all of this. There was some things about red teaming. There was something about vulnerability testing or vulnerability assessments. And that's not even really a part of the job. Those are just features that the hiring manager wants to see.
Yeah. And the other thing about using a template that can be on the dangerous side is, as our culture evolves, your job descriptions may be biased. Your job descriptions may be targeting male versus female just based on the wording. And if you're not paying attention to that, you'll be screening out candidates that are picking up on those and will not even apply because of that.
That's Ryan's point. Not only asking for experience, even the wording of descriptions can be intimidating. We're trying to bring in non-traditional outsiders, and we fill the JD with intimidating jargon. My question, who is responsible for fixing this?
I would say everyone, the recruiter, the manager, pass it internally to those from different backgrounds, have them reread the job description, have them give their feedback, because individuals from different backgrounds are likely to pick up on those cues.
I would agree. I think everyone responsible that's in that process, there needs to be someone driving, creating those requirements, and there needs to be someone also, or multiple parties, reviewing it. Far too many times when I was a team lead, I wasn't ever involved in creating the requirements for the positions, which is kind of a sad thing, because I'm also the one training all the new people, letting them know how to do their job or how to kind of gain the skills to be as effective as possible. But I wasn't a part of creating the job descriptions often.
Yeah. And that happens too. That tends to happen. You have somebody else creating all these job descriptions, and then you're just given this template at the end, or you're given something, or you're given candidates, and you're like, where'd these candidates even come from? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't align to what I really need.
Yeah.
Tyrone says everybody knows an entry level requires a CISSP. That's exactly what we're talking about here.
I have a question for you, Renee.
Sure.
How does a super recruiter get the experience to be able to effectively screen the candidates? I think maybe you're a little biased because you used to be an analyst, but for you and all the other recruiters that you work with, how do you guys get the expertise to find the right type of talent for these positions?
Shameless plug, read my book. I'll even give it away for free because I want everyone to have this information. Magnetichiring.com/book freebie.
Get it.
Get it, cybersecurity folks, recruiters. So many different pieces. I mean, it was truly trial by error. Like I was in a fire, so to speak. And had to gain this expertise. And so one of the things that I think ended up being successful for me is I partnered really, really closely with the cybersecurity team and asked them, hey, what does this mean? I have a funny what I always remember is I would call incidents response. I was like, okay, so what's this incidents response stuff? And everyone was like, what? Because I had no idea. I mean, it literally was like reading another language. And I was a tech recruiter. I mean, I've been recruiting tech for 10 years. And then I see this and I'm like, what is this? I don't understand any of this. I don't understand the resumes. Like none of this is what does any of this stuff mean? And so he ended up being the CISO and a person I eventually started working for. But at the time, Larry Silvers, he sat down, and I had another person, Eric Leibowitz. They sat down with me and they said, okay, this is what this means. This is what this means. You know, this is what a GRC resume looks like, what we're looking for. And they things like I'm fine to be able to understand what's going on. And that's how I was really able to. Any of the recruiters out there can easily get on the phone. Another great way to learn about any new skill, because the skills, they just change so often, is when you're talking to candidates. Like I have them explain to me, what is that? What does that mean? You know, like, what are you doing when you say you do X or Y? Mm-hmm. And when they really, really start to dig into what they do, and then you can kind of, it's like related to something that is normal, you know, not normal, so to speak, but like non-technical. And people tend to be able to like describe, okay, like if you're cooking a meal or if you're doing this, or, you know, like these different analogies. And then you can say, oh, well, that's what this means. Or, oh, you know, if you're looking for a SOC in, oh, it was a help, you know, if you're on a help desk and you're doing this thing, oh, that's how this translates. So interviewing definitely helps, and really just trying to learn more about what people are doing on a day-to-day basis by talking to the candidates. That's like the fastest way to learn.
And I think Ryan's comment really points that out about using the young candidates, using the interns. But I'll let us get to that in a second.
So junior pen test roles. Sabarish says, does junior pen test roles mainly focus on web app attacks?
I would say it really depends on the company. If you have a company that's focused on web applications, yes. But you could have companies that focus on physical pen tests and all sorts of different pen tests. So it depends on the organization.
Yeah. So Ryan's comment, why aren't you using your existing newcomers and interns to write them? They would know what to write. Use the kids.
Boom.
That's right, Ryan.
So some of the problems with that, I mean, in my humble opinion, is that they might not be aware of everything in the role that needs to be done. They might just be aware of what they're being asked to be, what they're asking to get done, or what they have done because they're comfortable doing it. There could be other aspects of the role which the manager has not asked them to do because they are aware of their skills and competencies and do not want them to fail. So they haven't tasked them with those assignments, but there could be other aspects of the role which they might not be aware of.
I think a lot of people don't know how to use interns the right way. Interns are highly effective. They're highly motivated, especially if they're a full-time intern. Man, I definitely agree. I think that even though they might not know about the role, you can send them to interview each team member one-on-one and say, you know, I want you to go and shadow them for a day, see what tools they're using, see how they're using them, ask them about it, learn on the job. And then once you get done, go give a first stab at writing these requirements.
Yeah, totally. Tyrone says, there is little follow-through and communication between the hiring manager and the HR personnel responsible for writing and posting of the job. However, those seeking entry-level positions should not let that deter them from applying, especially if it says entry-level.
Yes.
What's the old adage? If you can qualify for at least 60% of the role, go ahead and apply.
That's it. Because these job descriptions are just so, I mean, you look at them and you're like, what do you want? And even within recruiters, I mean, we were chatting about this yesterday. in regards to just open positions that are out there. And it's just like, is that really what they want? And the recruiter that I was talking to said, no, that's not what it's not really what they want. And we're two recruiters talking about it. I'm like, what do they want? So
Wow.
it's yeah, that's bad. That's really, really bad. And he's like, yeah, these job descriptions are a mess. So, it's just so unfortunate. On so many different levels.
And it doesn't just stop at the entry level roles. I think once you go up the levels, you might even have roles or job descriptions that incorporate 2 or 3 different roles because the companies are looking to cut back on overhead, cut back on the number of employees. So they're now combining the roles together and giving it more of a general title, where they're having more expectations from them, but it's really 2 or 3 different positions all combined into one.
That is so valid. That happens all the time, where it's a bunch of different positions meshed together, and you're like, what is this? And the people who don't, the HR person has no clue whatsoever. The candidates are looking at it like they're looking for 3 people. And if it tends to be, if the candidate is, most likely women tend to do this more. And Sarah was talking about this the other day. Sarah, our leadership coach that comes on Tuesdays, she was saying, a man will look at a job description, and to your point, 60% of it, boom, I'm good. Woman looks at it, one thing is missing, like, no, I'm not qualified. So, and if a manager is putting all these things in there saying, oh, I want this or this and maybe that and some of this, it's just like, you're really looking for 3 people in this one role, and you're turning off everybody because either the people who really, really qualified are looking at it like this is too much. They're looking for 3 people. The people that may be qualified, don't want it, don't want to deal with that. And then the other people are just completely confused. It's just confusing everybody.
And who would want to take a job like that if there's all these requirements? Like, now, are you going to be worried going to work? Are you going to lose your job because you only have 60% of the skills?
You're set up for failure.
You're
That's
right.
what, people that see those kinds of recs, I've been on the other side of them where people are like, nope, I'm not putting myself in this. What do they want? This is too much. This is 3 jobs.
Right.
I've had those conversations in interviews. I'm like, this position's calling for 3 different roles, and the hiring manager would say, well, this is why. And I go, okay, well, I'm qualified for one of these, and this is the area that I want to focus on. These other 2 areas I'm not qualified in, so I don't think I'd be a good fit for this role. And I would just end it right there, because if the expectations are there when you're interviewing to truly want someone with those varied backgrounds, you're not going to set yourself up for success.
And they people like you, people who know, will self-select out. And I think the takeaway for that is, like, to the manager who's trying to get a little bit of everything, you'll get nothing, because the people that you're really trying to attract are going to self-select out. The entry-level people don't even know. I mean, they'll apply, but they don't know that it's a trap. It's a trap tool. They'll apply. You won't want them anyway, because they won't have half the skills that you're looking for. Oh man, Rolanda says happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth,
Yes.
Rolanda.
Hey, Rolanda.
Yes, happy Juneteenth.
You got to get her on.
That's right. We got to get you on here. Chuck Kellner says, looking for 3 people or looking for a unicorn. That is the truth.
What are your thoughts on unicorns?
Unicorns are 3 people in one. Where are they? Can you get one? You ever found one?
And if you find someone that feels that you're a unicorn, they're going to be so hard to work with that, do you really want them on your team?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
and anyone with that drive, can learn a lot. So if I had a unicorn, they're not leaving my team. I'm going to make sure that, they stay. And if they do find another job, it's not going to be through applying through the job boards. It's going to be, probably because of their personal connections. So I think on the recs, definitely not. I don't think those are good places to look for unicorns.
No.
Yeah. Chuck said it.
Yep.
No. crazy. Yeah, it's wasting. The thing is, like, I think they think in their head sometimes that I put all of this out here and somebody is going to want like somebody will be attracted to it. And it's kind of like when you're marketing anything, right? Everything isn't for everybody. So if you're talking about, whatever, something that you want to market out there, and especially hiring in a cybersecurity world, non-entry level. So if you're looking for people who are above entry level, it's purely marketing because all of you folks are gainfully employed. And if you're not employed, it's for like 2 weeks or because you don't want to be. But most of the time, folks are employed. So like when someone's putting together a job description, it is truly a marketing slick. It's something saying, hey, this is why you should leave your comfy team over here and come over and do something with me over here. And these are the reasons why. And when it's crazy looking and it's like, oh, I'm looking for a unicorn, so to speak, or I'm looking for 3 different roles or whatever, people like you guys who are already in positions are like, why in God's name would I go over and even entertain something like this? Because either they don't have the budget and they're looking to overwork you, they don't understand what any of this means, because if you did, you would know, like, these are 3 different people, all of that.
And I commented on a thread on the other side of the equation now, a hiring manager asking on Twitter, do they go for someone that is a unicorn / rock star, or do they go for someone that's solid but has lots of potential? And my point of view is that you always go for the person with potential, because they have so much room to grow that they can overshine in different ways that you didn't expect. Whereas when you look at the rock star / unicorn, everything that they have, and they might not grow any more while in the role. Whereas a person with more potential, they can shoot up and become that rock star and provide even more that you weren't aware that they had, that they were capable of.
Yep. So true. So Zalaya is the one making this comment that says, absolutely, they have the unicorn mentality when looking for potential employees. And then Mary, she is funny. Mary's like, no, here we go. Mary says, just hire me. We're working on it, Mary.
What? Mary's looking?
You're supposed to be
Hit
here.
me up too, Mary.
You're supposed to be here on the podcast, Mary. We were just thinking, like, we didn't know Chris was gonna dip off on us. Slacker though. He's busy. He's really, really busy saving the world. But we were like, Mary should be here. Okay, so Chuck says they want CISSP and certified forensic discipline and will manage and build the staff, and we'll watch the perimeter all day long and execute exactly everything. Everybody all together, the whole.
It sounds like fun until you realize how much work that is.
Yeah. Like ooh, to somebody brand new, like
yeah, that's true. Like, I'll do everything.
The other downside to that is that you won't find someone that's typically very in-depth with all those skills. They might have an overview of all those skills, but if you're expecting them to deliver the depth of expertise that you would have with a individual focused in that area, you're wrong.
Yep, totally. So China says in the quote unquote required skills list, and you only have 60%, you may not even have the quote skill that they really want out of that 60% that you have. It's so sad. It is so sad. China, you're so right. It's like, on the one hand, it's so frustrating. Like, Chris and I, the reason why we stood this whole thing up is because of situations like this, right? So Breaking Into Cybersecurity was a bunch of people reaching out. How do we get in? Can you be our mentor? Things like that. And we were like, are you kidding me? I personally was just shocked that people weren't breaking in, especially people with degrees, people had masters, things like that. And then, they sent me a job description. I was like, what is this? Like, an entry-level person is 0 to 2 years, with a college degree or some certs or something. Like that's it. It's not a whole rigmarole of a litany of skills, because that is not entry level. Like, call it what it is. So to see some of these roles out here that are posted, it's funny when, we could laugh at it a little bit, but it's just really, really sad, because it's very, very frustrating. And you said it, thinking it.
Yep.
She's right. So frustrating to be trying to break in, to have gone to school, to go to get the degree, to do all these things that everyone tells you to do. And then you step out and you start looking. And when you put, you're looking at these job specs, and they're just ridiculous. They're all over the place. They say entry level and they're not. You learn that there's not really. Then people tell you, well, there's no real cybersecurity entry level jobs. Like, well, then what am I doing? Why did I spend this money and this time on this master's? It's just so frustrating for people. And I think that there is such an opportunity. And if I had thought about this sooner, I would have invited. There's a lady, she's a CISO, and she wrote a really good post a couple weeks ago. And her comment was, there's so much entry level work that can be done. She as a CISO, it's like, there's so much entry level work that can be done. What do you mean there's no entry level position? She's like, there's so much tactical work, stuff that you could just, hand off to a junior person to get their feet wet in the industry. Every company's not going to have a SOC for a SOC analyst, or a SOC analyst. A SOC role might be, now, international or whatever. So like, if you're specifically probably in the US or the UK, you're trying to break in, it's just like, initially the SOC analyst role used to be one of those kind of entry level roles. But there's so many things that can be done that you can break down and give to a person. And so my question to her was, what do you think the challenge is? Like, why are these quote entry level positions, asking for CISSPs and 10 years of experience and all this other foolishness? And so, and not saying to her, but just in general, like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So she, and I said, do you think it's a budget thing? Do you think it's and by a budget meaning, okay, I can't hire, I only have a budget of 150,000, whatever the number is. So I have to get the best one person that I can get, versus divvying that job into 3 entry-level jobs, breaking these roles down and saying, okay, let's take this piece off to the unicorn effect. Okay, let's get, this person, we need a person that could be a little bit more junior in this space. We need someone a little bit more senior in this space, and break that one job into maybe 3 or 4 jobs, which would give an opportunity to someone that's more junior. Or does she think that, people just don't have time? So I'm a CISO, I'm running around, I have like little time to, is that the challenge? There were all these, I said budget, time, and what the other one was, but I said, what do you think it is? And she says she thought it was a combination of all 3.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's resources needed internally to onboard, to manage, to guide junior resources, because that is a requirement of an entry level / junior resource, is that you need to be able to provide them with a little extra guidance, guardrails, assistance, and that takes time, whether that is from medium to senior level staff or from management. It does require a little more overhead. But that little overhead could reap you a lot more in return on investment for that individual. So you don't look at the short run, look at the long run.
Yep.
Yeah. Some more comments coming in. So Chuck, do you think it's oversight on the part of the business that they don't understand the work to be done? How does a manager legitimately get the right JD drafted if it is for a new position or a growing need? Such a good point.
Yeah, they do have to understand the business. I mean, they have to understand the business. They have to understand their department and what the needs of the department is. Because if you're growing a new role, they should understand what that role is intended to fill, because they're the one looking to fill it. It's not likely that a manager will say, oh, I need this new position, and not know what needs that that position is looking to fill. If they have a gap in their team, the role will fill those gaps. Use that gap to write your job description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely have to understand the gaps first, and it's a lot easier to plan to get the right person when you truly understand it. I was just watching a video about the first thing that you do for like network security or infrastructure security is visibility. I think the same for understanding what kind of person you need. You need to understand the resources that you have, the resources that the organization needs. Like, what is the weakness? Like, what skill do we not have, or what skill do we want to train someone to get really good at? I think that visibility is really helpful.
Yeah.
And the foresight to what the market is going to be demanding in the next 3 to 5 years. If you have that, you can plan to get there ahead of time.
Yep. So George says, seems most companies are unwilling to let eager cybersecurity enthusiasts get their feet wet despite having a degree. George, I'm with you. There is the reason why we stood this thing up, this Breaking Into Cybersecurity, is because of this. This is all Chris and I heard for a year, and continue to hear, and it seems like it's getting worse, which is bizarre to me. Because in a year, you could have had someone that's completely green. Now they have a year experience. If you brought them in a year ago, you bring them in as interns and you grow that community of people to get them ready. Like, this has been done in so many different industries, and it's bizarre to me as to why, there's all these questions around how to get it done. Like, you do it in the military all day long. Did it back when women going into accounting, when, you talk about diversity, things like that. In the 70s, there were no women in accounting, or less women. How do we bring people in? How do you train them up? And you send them to accounting school, like everything else, and you bring them entry level and all of this. It's the same process. So it fascinates me to no end when I see in not a good way that all of these people are out here getting degrees, and either the degree programs aren't setting them up for success or something. Because to me, if you're going for this thing and at the end you cannot get an opportunity, then everyone's failing.
I have a question for Chris.
Me?
I
Okay.
work with a lot of seasoned security practitioners and also a lot of interns. And I truly believe in the junior members of the cybersecurity team, especially the ones that have college degrees, because they can often code. But a lot of the more seasoned practitioners I work with, they're afraid to make changes because they don't want anything to break. Do you think that has anything to do with managers and organizations not letting the team members, especially the junior ones, get their feet wet?
Yes, it could be that. It could be a factor of overemphasizing on the possible risk without having any controls. And that's where things like cyber ranges and test environments and things like that come into play, because if you don't have that, you probably should. You shouldn't be treating your production as your test environment.
Yep.
And that's where they run into those issues. You should have a test environment where individuals you can set your interns free in that environment, have them create the code, have them innovate, because you can't get innovation without testing. And you will see them flourish in those types of environments.
So Gary, our friend to the show, says basically you see IT job descriptions that have been stripped down and cyber buzzwords have been added. Very rarely do you see a job description written from scratch that matches the skill sets needed for the org's current security stack and procedures. Amen. Hallelujah. True indeed. How can a community educate the organizations to write up a coherent job description?
Well, NICE and NIST have been working on creating general job descriptions, knowledge categories that are needed for some of these job descriptions, and skills assessment as well. So we can work with those organizations to standardize those job descriptions, or create our own within a community standard But if you already have something that's created, work to make that more true to what the environment is if it's not, and standardize that across the board.
And Gary answers her.
Gary asks about writing those job descriptions, and Rex should have the director of security / CISO sit down with HR and educate them on how to do it correctly. And when done, they should reduce the turnover and recruit the correct talent. Unfortunately, this is rarely done. And I would say that's spot on, because you have these CISOs or directors that are quote unquote too busy to sit down with HR to do that. They feel they're already overburdened with all their responsibilities that are handed down from the C-levels, that they feel that this task is beneath them, and they don't see that as a valuable use of their time. And that's part of the inherent flaw within these job descriptions.
Thinking is hard. It's hard to think through these requirements. It's like, what do I really need? I think it's almost like creating a 1 to 3 year plan for yourself. Like if you do that for your life, it's extremely difficult. If you do that for your job, it might be even harder, but it is so valuable because that's like a non-technical thing you can do, and it goes so far.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so true. Gary's so right. Like I said, that's how I learned, sat down with the folks, understood, break it down. What does this mean? And it just makes life so much more simple for everyone.
Definitely.
I mean, if you're doing this for your security program and you're doing an assessment of your security program to see where your strengths and your gaps are, why not do this for your job descriptions? Why not do this for your teams to see where their strengths are, and then what you can do to help amplify those strengths, as well as fill in the gaps that your team has so that they can be a complete package.
Exactly. George says, I only hire unicorns and elves. George, you could be our guest co-host next week.
Wait, do the elves live up to it?
We can't have him on because it's going to be just jokes the whole entire time. So George said, I just finished a conference. We were looking for individuals who are hungry for a job as an entry-level threat intel and SOC operator. So folks,
reach out to George.
Reach out to George. Any entry-level people, reach out to George. Okay, and then Zelaya, this is her comment. I wonder how are they ever going to fill the cybersecurity need that is always talking about if they're not more open-minded when it comes to hiring people who have the passion but don't necessarily meet all of the job requirements. That's what frustrates me. That's why we're out here. I personally have adopted a high school, Marshall High School, and one of the students from the school is going to be coming on and talking next week to us about learning and what he's done and what the school has done to get ready in terms of certifications. But from the leader point, people there has to be a point, and there will be at some point, where we can't sit here and sing the same song. I mean, we've been on this show for 2 years, and this has been going on for way before that. And it just doesn't make any sense. PwC, they have a cyber boot camp. They bring people in droves from different majors, different backgrounds, get people ready, train them up, put them through. I mean, it's just training programs. Any company can do it. It's been done. It is done constantly. Why it hasn't, taken off from a cyber perspective overall, I'm not sure. But
I mean, the medical field, the electrical field, they have programs to bring people in to train them up, journeyman programs where you have both the education and on-the-job training. Cobblers have these types of apprenticeship, welders. We can do this in cybersecurity. We just have to invest that overhead needed to guide and mentor up those students as they grow.
Yeah. AWS is doing it also in Northern Virginia and probably in other places as well. But they are having interns at the high school level come in. They are having, they partner with community colleges to get people, geared up. So it looks like, some of the bigger companies are jumping in and doing it. I think AT&T has an internal like cross-skill, upskill, an academy within the organization to bring people in to, cross-train people who may already have the experience. And that was another thing that was from a recruiting perspective, an HR perspective, that I learned about. One of the things when writing the first book and just talking to people about how they broke into the industry, especially folks back in the day, so 10, 20 years ago, 18 years ago, whatever. How did you get into security? And it was always from some other space. Like there was no quote, there was a little bit of a security, cybersecurity, but most people came in from some other background. Sysadmin, developer, something else, some other technical field. So it again, it's mind-boggling. Like, hey, folks that came in these other ways, this is how you got here. You were not always a cybersecurity specialist, or expert. Bring up the next person. But again, a combination, budgets, time, lack of time, all these different things.
I have a question for Ron. So what do big companies like Palo Alto do to help with this problem? Like, how do they approach it?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I would love to have Ronald on, because she is kind of behind diversity and inclusion for Palo Alto Networks. And what we do is, and what I've also assisted with, is going out to universities and talking to some of the, eager students. I haven't gone as far as going to the high schools or middle schools, but I know that there's some initiatives, but it's outreach, a lot of outreach by the big companies. I think that there's still a lot that we can do when it comes to that, because the subset of people that we're looking at that could be talented in this space are typically the ones that have the most opportunity when they're young. But what if you don't have that opportunity? What if you still have that passion, that hope, but you've just never had the support system to really make it there? I think that's all the misfits and whatnot, some of the representation here in the cybersecurity field in the first place. I think that what we can do better is look at those that aren't in university programs.
Yeah. Definitely. We've had some amazing individuals come on that were doing their mid-career transitions or even late career transitions. And with that, you bring such a variety of transferable skills. You bring outside knowledge, outside experience, the people skills that you can only get through time.
Leadership.
The leadership.
Yeah, just being able to, navigate some of these really political environments, knowing what to say, knowing what to write, what not to write, what not to say, all of that is so important. It's so important. And Jenny, that was on our podcast yesterday, doesn't have a college degree. And she was able to, she got in through a mentor. Gary says, love you guys. Happy Friday. Really stoked you're here for the community and leading the discussion. Yay. Happy Friday,
you, Gary.
We see you this week.
Gotta have you back.
Yes. George says, in Israel, cybersecurity is very important. A very important subject, from the military to the common businesses. Even in schools, teach at a kindergarten level.
Love that.
Yeah, this is what we should be doing. It should be a part of the curriculum.
And I think one of the things that sets Israel apart is that they have it as part of their national strategy. They have it built into the schools. They have it built into the requirement for military service. They have it built in, and it provides their country with the resources that's needed, versus here it's still voluntary. And because it's still voluntary all the way in through college, even in college, there's no requirement for a basic computer class. You still have parts of the student population that don't understand computer security. It should be a requirement for everyone to at least have that foundational knowledge.
Yeah, there's some things going on. I know that there's one of my mentors, Marcus Carey, is trying his best to bring more awareness to the youth about cybersecurity, what it is, and opportunity that it provides. He wrote 2 books, Think and Code and The 3 Little Hackers. Love those. So for anyone that wants to teach their kids, those could be some great reading materials to look at.
We should try to bring Marcus on one week.
To bring Marcus on. We totally need to bring him on to talk about this stuff. Okay, so I know we all have to run soon. So questions or comments are coming in. We want to thank everyone for all of these awesome comments and for joining us during this conversation. It's making me think maybe we should do like an open forum, like a job spec open training or something, like something where people can, leaders or whoever can kind of jump on and walk through, and maybe it be, some kind of training for leaders and cybersecurity and HR folks to get in and learn about this, because this is a huge problem on all different levels. It wastes a lot of time. When the hiring manager is confused, they put it out there and the candidates are confused, or the HR person is confused. There's clearly a lot of confusion going on. So trying to figure out how, where the challenge lies. I think Chris said it best, though. It's not a national concern yet at the level that it needs to be, so that everyone is kind of educated. But what can we do purely from a job spec perspective, so that it shortens the timeline to hire, gets the right people, like looking at the role, just those little bits. Maybe we do something about that. I'm feeling like a training is necessary.
I think that would be amazing.
Yeah,
I think so. I think we'll make that happen. All right, folks. Any last points before we wrap?
Nope.
My last point would be, even though things are a little messed up, don't be discouraged. Go out there, get the opportunity that you want, get the 60% of requirements, and learn the rest on the job. But don't let it discourage you, and just ask for clarification whenever you reach the interview.
Yep.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the change you want to see in the world. I will wrap with that. I think that's perfect. Alrighty, folks. We will see you again next week on another episode 12. Goodness gracious, I cannot believe we are at episode 12. That's 3 months of this fun stuff.
Right.
Hanging out with you guys. Oh, wow. So next Friday, we will see you, and have a wonderful week, and happy Father's Day to you.
Yes.
Ron has a dad. Chris, and all the guys out here.
Happy Father's Day, Chris.
Happy Father's Day to everyone out there.
All right, folks. See everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.